Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your brand new weekend. We do have a lot to talk about in this morning's video, and the first thing we'll discuss is the tropics. It'll be broken up into two different sections. The first thing we'll speak on is an area of interest dubbed by the National Hurricane Center just last night that we need to watch. Out here in the Atlantic, we have a pretty robust tropical wave right now. It's an area of the Atlantic that typically doesn't get very active until around August into September, but we need to speak on it. And then there's going to be an area a little bit closer to home that we need to watch off the coast of the southeast, maybe in the northern Gulf over the next several days, really getting into next week. Some homegrown activity, kind of like what we saw with Chantal and then Invest 93L this past week. So after that, we'll speak on today's weather. There is a risk of strong to severe thunderstorms and flash flooding across a pretty large area of the country. So we'll have a segment for that also. And then join us for the end of the video. We'll have a Bible devotion. We'll read in scripture a little bit, discuss it, and all that good stuff. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And of course, if anybody has anything that we can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. So it gives me an opportunity to pray over, and it gives many others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the Atlantic. We got the Gulf, we got the Caribbean, the Southwest Atlantic, and we got what we call the MDR, the main development region, the tropical Atlantic. This area out here is typically, like I mentioned, an area of the Atlantic Ocean that typically does not get very active until, I would say, August, September. But when we get to the later portion of July, we start to see signs that's beginning to wake up, and we're seeing that. We've been seeing it over the last day or so, and we're really seeing it this morning. So I'm going to circle a couple features here. Let's make sure this is going to work, and it is. So this is our tropical wave we are watching, and basically it's a big area of it's a broad area of unsettled weather, disorganized shower and storm action. Nothing is really organized. There's no defined low-level circulation. We're not dealing with tropical cyclones, what I'm trying to say. Just a tropical wave, and I would say the center of this wave is probably somewhere in here. I'll kind of draw a circle inside a circle, if you will. So we're watching this. We're going to discuss this one first. It's going to move, somewhere into this area. Is it going to be able to maintain any kind of strength? A lot of times this time of the year, once it gets into this area of the Caribbean, we call it the graveyard of the Caribbean. This time of the year, conditions, upper wind pattern wise, do not favor tropical development. But we'll see. We'll discuss model guidance. And then, of course, we're going to discuss this area and then this area. Both have a shot at some homegrown activity as we get into next week. Some energy can kind of get tossed off the coast of the southeast. You're not really seeing anything right now, but we're going to discuss that. Also, just kind of want to show you the pieces of the puzzle out here in the Atlantic over areas of the U.S. If there's anything to really show you, there definitely is with a wave before we get into this. But the latest from the National Hurricane Center, we got a brand new update. It was dropped around 7:30ish Eastern time. We have a 20% chance of tropical development. Remember, we've been talking about this for the last couple of days, and sure enough, National Hurricane Center has dubbed this an area of interest. X marks the spot. So that's kind of like where our tropical wave or broad, disorganized area of energy is right now. So they think that if it's going to develop, it has a 20% chance to develop in this yellow area. Develop means develop into a tropical depression or a named storm, basically a tropical system with a defined low-level circulation. So we have to watch, is this going to increase? Right now, just a 20% chance. There's no areas of interest off the coast of the southeast or the Gulf. We'll have to watch that also, see if that changes over the next few days. I wouldn't be surprised if sometime over the next 48 to 72 hours, I would say early next week, really, we end up getting two areas to watch. But let's go over model, guys. The latest Euro from overnight, and we're going to start this off for this evening. Now, you're going to see just, greens and yellows and reds on your screen. A lot of green. That's just moisture, right? And you're going to occasionally see an L pop up on your screen. That's where this particular model run is trying to tell us where maybe some sort of central lower pressure is. So there's our wave right here. It's not very strong, but we get into Sunday, we get into Monday next week, and then we get into Tuesday. It's saying this wave is going to be right around right here. So starting to get into, a little bit closer to the Lesser Antilles. At this point, it's closer to the Lesser Antilles than it is, say Africa. We also got a lot of energy dancing around out here in the the Eastern Atlantic also. So nothing defined, but there is just an uptick in moisture. I think that's one of the I think that's one of the things you should take the most out of this is there's an uptick in moisture out here. But you see how defined this blob of moisture is with this central low pressure? The moisture pocket, I think, will be very small because there's a lot of dust and just desert air in this area right here in the Atlantic, basically just north of any kind of tropical development that could get going from the desert, of course, and Africa. So this is pretty typical in July. But as we continue to move this forward, we get into the middle portion of next week, next Wednesday. We get into next Thursday, and it looks like this kind of is just an open wave. There's no L popping up, but there is an area of lower pressure. It just doesn't look like it fully develops. Now, what about, say, the GFS? Same thing, started off for, say, tomorrow evening. We get into early next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You can barely even see what's going on. It kind of just falls apart, just a lot of tropical moisture. Nothing maintains itself. In fact, it kind of falls apart before it even makes it to the Caribbean. But it's a sign that things are waking up. And one thing that I would ask you to, I guess, take away from this is, one, like I said, uptick in moisture out here in the MDR, main development region, tropical Atlantic. And model guidance is not perfect. We saw with Barrel, I remember last year with Barrel, there was some model runs in the beginning with tracking that showed absolutely nothing. Kind of the same situation. It ended up developing into a Category 5 hurricane. Now, it's not me saying that's what's going to happen, but just don't take too much away from this model guidance. And that's, as we get into days like 7 to 10, is there anything else showing up out there? No, just a steady stream of tropical moisture. Another way to look at this is what we call the 850 millibar of Vort. So here's our tropical wave right here. You can see with the highlighted colors, more energy in the lower levels of the atmosphere. And you get this going. We get into, say, Monday. We get into Tuesday. That's a pretty defined little tropical wave. In fact, one would argue that's a tropical depression, maybe a weak tropical storm, which, by the way, the next name is I want to say it's a Dexter. Yeah, so Dexter. Next name is that. Not sure why it took me so long to remember what it was, but it's Dexter. I think it's because we thought that this system this past week was going to take that name. It did not, so we still are waiting to take that name. But as we're starting to get into midway next week, you can see in that defined low-level energy right here on the latest 060, 06Z Euro, by the way. So this is the latest information, and it does kind of keep a compact wave inside and gets it inside the Caribbean. In fact, we'll switch it to the Caribbean area right here. And as we start to get into the Eastern Caribbean, there it is. Our wave is right here trying to hold together, but a lot of times there's a lot of wind shear in what we call the Eastern Caribbean, the graveyard of the Caribbean. It's where tropical systems oftentimes go to die. So that's why we call it that. And a lot of times this year, I mean, even in the heart of hurricane season, tropical systems tend to struggle in this area. So one of the last things we'll look at here when breaking down this area is the Euro ensemble. Now, the ensemble, EPS-wise, makes up about 51 members, and in this output, it's going to throw all the members that do develop into a pretty decently strong low pressure on the screen. So what you're going to see here as we start this off, this is Monday morning, a lot of L's popping up and kind of clustering up in one area. Now we get into Tuesday morning, they're still there. We get into Wednesday morning, still there, but, as we start to get into Thursday, you don't see as many L's clustered up on your screen anymore. It does that because, there's still some sort of lower pressure there, but it basically weakens so much that it doesn't even show an L on your screen anymore. So that is a sign that, hey, we do got a decent, strong tropical wave, maybe even get a depression or a weak storm out of this, but it does inevitably show this weakening right now. And another thing we can look at is chances of a tropical depression developing. And right now they have that at, anywhere from a 60 to an 80% chance right here in the central Atlantic. And a lot of times this can be a little just skewed, I guess you would say. I don't always like showing this because it's a lot of times it's off. For example, it showed like 100% chance of a tropical depression developing with Invest 93L. We did not end up getting a depression out of it. So sometimes this isn't the best thing to look at, but this is our signal for tropical development out here in the Atlantic. But I want you to look at this area right here. Chance of tropical development also close to home between now and the next 10 days. So let's dive into that a little bit. Homegrown activity is possible. If we look at the latest Euro, and we'll start us off Monday afternoon, you're going to see a lot of unsettled weather over the southeast, the Appalachian Mountains, things like that. Low pressure 1010 millibar over the Carolinas. This energy will try to get thrown off the coast of the southeast. You can still see that 1013 millibar low. This is going to dance around. Eventually, as we get into Wednesday, we could get some tropical moisture on the southeast side, off the coast of the southeast, and over the open waters of the northern Gulf. So we continue to move this forward. A lot of moisture flies over Florida as we get into Wednesday into Thursday. And then we get into Thursday next week, and we could get some moisture over the Gulf, but it's not showing a whole lot. There's not a whole lot that your eye goes to, right? Except just blobs of green and splashes of yellow and orange. But you can see something trying to get going down here. There's a lot of moisture. Is this some sort of low pressure? I think it is, but it doesn't show much. There's not a lot to see here. Now, GFS says that, it shows pretty much the same thing. Energy from some sort of cold front stalls out, decays off the coast of the southeast. When energy is not able to get pushed one way or another in the atmosphere, it just kind of hangs out over one area. If it's over the open waters of like the Gulf Stream off the coast of the southeast, it's going to try to gain some tropical characteristics this time of the year. So, we look at the latest GFS and we get all the way into Thursday. We got a little lower pressure right here and some down here. And sure enough, this actually tries to develop like that is some sort of weak tropical system as we get into around this time next week, getting pushed into Louisiana and Texas. It's not Mitch saying, that's not a forecast from me. That's just what model guidance is showing. And listen, the pattern supports it. Last thing you look at is kind of what we looked at with the MDR, main development region kind of set up. Look at the lower level energy in the atmosphere, and you can see it, the splashes of, the greenish blues color, the yellow, the reds, the orange. And then you can see a little bit of a spin ongoing on your map as we get into kind of later next work week. One right here, and then one trying to get going down here. So we keep this in motion, and we got a gnarly little spin right here. But, it looks scary on this map, but it's not. It's still a weak tropical system. If that was a hurricane spin in the lower levels of the atmosphere, it would look a lot more vibrant color-wise on your screen. You would know it. Your eyes would go straight to it. I would say the best thing to look at when trying to figure out this homegrown setup is tropical moisture. The red you see on your screen, that's precipitation values that are over like 2 inches, very deep tropical moisture. So, we keep this going here. The purple area is even deeper tropical moisture, just a slug of deep tropical moisture over the southeast, repeating myself there. And then eventually this kind of gets over the open waters of the northern Gulf. And this is where it could potentially gain some real true tropical characteristics as we get into about mid to late next week. My dog is staring at me here in the side door in our playroom, and yep, there he goes. So it's something we got to watch, some tropical moisture in the Gulf and off the coast of the southeast. And, one thing I will say is regardless, a lot of rainfall could get generated by this pattern. For some of the same areas that saw it from Invest 93L. So I think between now and the next 10 days, soggy pattern setting up for the Gulf coastline, Florida, the Carolina coastline. So a lot of rain is definitely on the way, regardless if we get any true tropical development. So that's your update on the tropics. As far as your weather today, big area of storms and heavy rain cruising across areas of the Midwest. A little bit of rain dancing around the mid-Atlantic. We got some rain in the deep south. We got some energy up here in the high plains and the northern Rockies. And if we continue to move forward here, watches, warnings, and advisories. Big time heat, guys. These are extreme heat warnings in this kind of pink color right here, and that burgundy red color, that is extreme heat watches. And then the orange, that is heat advisories. And we got flood watches across the mid-Atlantic, and just a lot of alerts out here for heat, really. Now, the Storm Prediction Center outlook, let's see if we got any new information, because I'm making this video a little bit later. And it does look like some has changed. Yes, 9/19. Sheesh, the latest morning video I've made in a long time. Level 2 out of 5, risk of severe weather across the high plains, down to the central plains, the Midwest, areas of the Great Lakes region, Ohio Valley. Slight risk here, and a slight risk across the upper southeast and the mid-Atlantic. Now, just due to time, I'm not going to be able to zoom in as much, guys, but there is a 2% risk of a tornado going from the northern high plains through the central plains, through the Midwest, all the way into the Great Lakes region. So if you do live in this green area, that is a 2% risk of a tornado. The wind threat, kind of 4 different areas. 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour in each one of these yellow areas here. So definitely a risk of damaging winds. The hail threat will be really positioned more to the western area of this severe weather threat. So 15% risk of hail in the yellow area, 1 inch in diameter or larger, 10% risk in the black outline area of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. So the excessive rainfall outlook, let's update this too, see if there's been any changes. Large 15% risk area of flash flooding across this yellow region. So a big area of the country runs a risk of flash flooding. Now, if you look at the southeast, a broad look at things, a lot of thunderstorms get going over the next couple hours across eastern Tennessee, northern Georgia, northern Alabama, and then a lot of thunderstorm activity will get going in the western areas of North Carolina. Virginia could have more of an organized area of storms up here in northern Virginia, eastern Tennessee, storms, and then we start to get into the evening hours. All this energy will push east to get closer to the shorelines, and we could get a stormy, evening for the Tidewater to Delmarva into northeastern areas of North Carolina later on today. A little bit closer look at, say, Virginia and North Carolina here. Could definitely get just widespread thunderstorms. So just be aware of this. Some heavy downpours and frequent lightning, hail, things like that. Certainly a stormy afternoon, evening across Virginia and North Carolina. This is 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11, midnight tonight. So just be aware of this, guys. Certainly active weather, that's for sure. So moving into the Northeast, there's not a whole lot to talk about. Storms possible in Maryland. Some storms could move into Ohio. And of course, we'll speak on Michigan here in a second. But the immediate New England, Northeast area, there's not a whole lot to speak on. Rain will push into western New York, the Adirondacks, Tuck Hill Plateau, probably tomorrow morning. And we do have to watch this cluster of storms here in northern Kentucky. Now, speaking about the south central U.S., most of your action here is probably going to be to the north. But please watch out for some strong thunderstorm activity in Colorado. A lot of downpour activity in New Mexico. Some storms, especially in the northwestern corner of Kansas. These could pack one heck of a punch. There is a 2% risk of a tornado. Just a risk of severe weather all the way here in Kansas today. Just normal kind of pop-up activity over Louisiana, Mississippi. You'll be begging for a storm in this area of how hot and humid it's going to be. But most of our energy up here is to the north. Now, the north central U.S., definitely a stormy setup, and I wish I could give you guys more of a state-by-state breakdown, but just running low on time in this morning's video. But Illinois, Indiana, big storms later on this afternoon. We get into this evening. There's another cluster of storms that enters Illinois. Big supercells could get going in Nebraska. And just a closer look at some of these regions. This is getting into this evening. Look at these supercells, kind of along that Montana, Dakota, Wyoming line. These could produce some very large hail. A risk of tornadoes. I wouldn't be surprised if they bump it up from a 2 to a 5% risk inside that 2% risk area. Clusters of nasty storms here in the northern half and central areas of Nebraska. And then we start to get into the overnight hours. And I do think a lot of this energy will calm down, but it'll still be out there. I just think it might lose its strong to severe punch to it. And then a closer look at the Midwest here. Clusters of storms is the general theme. Every single one of these clusters of storms could produce all hazards. We got nasty storms north of Milwaukee up here to Green Bay, big storms in Illinois and Indiana, big storms in lower Michigan also. And then we got another cluster of storms that forms here and kind of oozes a little bit further south in Illinois later tonight. This is like after the sun sets. We got storms in lower Michigan over here. Another cluster of back building storms in Iowa. And check this out. As we are starting to get into tomorrow morning, just a lot of heavy rain. And we can get a lot of rain. Look at this avenue of rain between now and the next 36, 48 hours. Multiple inches of rain through Iowa, through areas of the Midwest. Western U.S., pretty quiet, guys. Not a whole lot to speak on. We got rain dancing around across the Central Rockies. But other than that, it's been kind of quiet out here. Sorry to leave you guys hanging so much with the detail lately. Hot is a general theme across the southern tier of the country. Not as hot for the southern area, for the northern areas of the country. And in the western half of the country, like I said, it's going to be blistering hot along the Mississippi Valley, points west, and then the western U.S. will be pretty warm also. So I did have to blitz through this update, guys, and I do apologize. It's just low on time. But we're going to use this as a timestamp. One thing we will not leave out is God, right? So we're going to still do our Bible devotion while you hear my dog whining on the other side of the door. I would bring him in, guys, but he is still a puppy, and he will act absolutely insane, and he would totally destroy the flow of this video. So this morning, Proverbs 4:23. So Proverbs 4:23, and it says, "Guard your heart above all else, for it is the source of life." Guard your heart above all else, for it is the source of life. So I wrote down a couple things. It said heart represents the core of a person. Guard and strengthen your inner core. A strong inner core allows for a strong outer. Prioritize inner, and the outer will work itself out. You strengthen your inner core by following God and His desires for your life. Follow His will. We talk a lot on that with this channel, right? If you're struggling with your inner self, your outer self will at some point be negatively impacted. Okay, don't pretend you got it all together. We all struggle and need godly guidance. Constantly seek to renew your heart, inner core, every day. Your actions, how you handle adversity, etc., reflect the state of your inner core and your inner self. We all go through tough times, right? We all handle it differently. You'll handle it better if you're strengthening that inner core. So, hope that resonates well with you guys. It's funny, when I made the video this morning, I felt like I had a lot better of a devotion. I spoke a lot longer on it, but the audio was destroyed on it. You could barely hear me. So my dog is about to destroy my side door over here. So hopefully that was a good devotion for you guys. But strengthen that inner core. If you put up a front on the outer portion of yourself and you're not working on your inner self, eventually the outer will reflect negatively to the surface. So just remember that, guys. And that's speaking to myself too. One of my biggest kryptonites is my lack of patience. It oozes negatively to other things too. So I'm always trying to just self-reflect on that for myself. And the best way you strengthen your inner core, guys, is to build your relationship with Christ. You strengthen your heart. And when you do that, you'll be able to handle the adversities of life a lot better, guys. And so strengthen yourself spiritually, emotionally and physically, and you do that by strengthening that inner core. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.